So as I say, welcome everybody to this bite-sized session on graphs. So again, for anybody who hasn't been on sessions so far today, the bite-sized sessions are meant to be small, short, quick sessions going through some of the key topics that we get feedback on, and graphs is one of those, definitely for maths. I'm actually going to go through two parts of graphs, or two key things that I want to go over, which I'll explain in a moment. Graphs are a part of the math syllabus for functional skills. They're not a massive part. One thing, however, you will find is if there's a question on maths, on graphs, charts, those kind of things, they tend to be the larger questions. I'm just going to put a there. Let's see if we can reduce that. Give me a moment. That's better. Can't hear myself, which is a good thing. Yeah, so for example, quite often in the second section of the maths test, usually one of the last questions will be on graphs. If you're expected to draw a graph, create a graph, it's usually one of the latter questions, which is worth 5 or 6 marks. So you probably won't get 5 questions on them, but you might only get 1 or 2, but they will worth a lot of marks. One of the other things to say generally about graphs is we do tend to use graphs a lot, whether it's at the moment watching the press conferences and Chris Whitty prevents another one on coronavirus, or whether it's at work, where people work in lots of different sectors, and finance information often comes in graphs and charts and those kind of things. So probably out of all the things to do with maths, sometimes people may say they don't deal with percentages, or they never do ratios, or never work out the range. But graphs is something we do tend to be able to see, and so we generally people have a better understanding of it. So what I'm going to go through is some of the key tips rather than some of the basics, to make the assumption that you know those. What I'm going to talk about is some different types of charts. I'm going to focus on 4 different types of charts or graphs. I'm going to use charts and graphs interchangeably here, and I'm also going to show you how to create charts in the testing software. So one of the big things about charts with functional skills is not only knowing what they are and interpret them and how to create and how to look at them and how to use them, but it's actually creating them. And one of the key things of that is there's computer-based software that you'll be using for the testing, and it does have some of its own features specific in there. So I'm actually going to focus on those. I know for some of you, testing might be a little way off. And some of you, I know a couple of people are doing tests this week, so it'll be more relevant for some than others. But I think not only knowing about how to do charts, but actually how to do it in the software that we use for tests will be hopefully useful for you as well. So as we've said in every one of the sessions today, can you let me know in the chat if you're happy to share? Don't feel you have to, but how confident you feel about using graphs and charts generally. If you were given a graph or a chart and had to get some information off it or do something with it, or had to create one, how confident would you say you are? If we go from 1 being not confident to 10, up to 10 being confident. I've also just put my hand up for some reason. There you go, I'll put it back down again. So some middling scores there. And that's quite common when I ask people, and actually when it comes to graphs and charts, people go, oh, actually it wasn't as bad as I thought. As I say, because we probably do, even if we don't realise, we probably are around them more than we think. Okay, brilliant, thank you for those scores. I'll ask you at the end and what you think about it. So ask a question, another question again, if you put your answers in chart. Tell me some types of graph or chart that you know of and heard of. Good question, Claire. Always depends on what it is. When it's maths, it always depends on the question. But can anybody tell me different types of charts, graphs that they're aware of? And I won't ask you to explain them, just maybe the names. So we've got a bar chart, a pie chart, a table, a line chart. And again, we can interchangeably use charts and graphs. People tend to. Some of them, for some reason, we use graph and some we use chart, but can be interchangeable. Scatter is mentioned there. Yeah, good one. Pie chart. Excellent. These with a Gantt chart, a spider graph. Very good. And some will have certain names and more formal names than others. So you may have some formal names as well. Some great examples there, though. So some ones you might come across as a tally chart, which tends to be where, I'm sure you're aware of this, where sometimes there's a 5-bar gate, I've heard people call them, where you do a count, and when you get to 4, you put a line across to symbolise 5. So something like that would be 10, and you count them up and so on. So I'm sure that's something that many people have seen. If I go through any of these and you haven't seen them, we can cover them afterwards. As I say, I'm not going to plan to go through everything today, but we can go over any that you're not sure of at a later time. So there's tally charts, there's a funnel chart, a bit like the pyramid that's on the screen. A funnel chart would show things either funneling in or funneling out, which can represent things. Histograms, pictograms tend to be charts that use pictures rather than to symbolise something. Gantt chart, somebody mentioned before, which is often to do with project planning and those kind of things. Venn diagram, no one's mentioned, which come up. But there's 4 key ones that you'll probably come across in your functional skills. It's in the functional skills syllabus, and you're most likely to use, and actually most likely to use in every day as well. And they are a scatter chart, a scatter graph, a line graph, a pie chart, and a bar or column chart. Now, again, people interchangeably use bar and column. There are differences between them, but for our purposes, we're actually going to use both terms. And so I'll talk all through them. So a bar chart, also known as a column chart, looks something like this. Now, I would actually argue that that's a column chart rather than a bar chart, because bar charts would normally go across the screen, such as this. But I do know City and Guilds in the functional skills chest call what's on your screen a bar chart, so we'll go with the word bar chart. So if you came across the word column chart, the same. And this is somebody's been asked, a group of people have been asked their favourite type of movie, and then put into a chart. Now, I do appreciate, I have screenshot this, and it does say favourite spelt the American way, so there should be a U in there. And actually, I've spelled it correctly at the top, so I didn't want to change both of them. But all it's showing is 4 people liked comedy, and if you look at the chart on the bottom there, the green tab goes up to 4 here, suggesting 4 people, and it says comedy at the bottom. But sci-fi at the end goes up to 4 as well, so that matches our table at the top. So that's what we're talking by a bar or a column chart. It tends to be what's called discrete data. So discrete data is set numbers. So if we said how many people like these things, we can only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. We couldn't have 3.2 of a person because that doesn't exist. So it's usually discrete data that we can set on, and the bars or the columns show the amount, or they show the frequency of something happening, whatever it might be. I'm going to ask a question. I've got to mention here x-axis and y-axis. Can anybody tell me which is the one that goes across and which is the one that goes up? So does x-axis go up or across, and which one's y-axis? Anybody tell me in the chat whether x goes across, y-axis goes across? X is across, I've got. X is across, y up. Brilliant, lots of people are getting it. And if you're not too sure, one way to think about it is x is indeed, the x-axis goes across, and x looks like across, so that might remind you. And then somebody said to me the other days, and why would you bother going up? So that might be remembering why. That's probably not quite as good a one. But x, thinking of x is across, will remind you that x goes across. And so that gives us y. And normally when we talk about them, we'll talk about the x coordinates before the y coordinates. We'll go along before we go up. So the x-axis on a bar chart or column chart will usually have the categories, as we see here, comedy, action, romance, maybe color-coded, or there may be a key somewhere to indicate what they are, but they're normally the categories of something they run. And then the y-axis is where you have the intervals, the information. The y-axis on a bar chart should really always start from 0. I'll come on to this in a little while. But your point there would always be 0, and then you'll go up in whatever intervals. If we look at the table at the top, the highest figure for this one was 6. So this chart goes up to 10, probably 8 would have been enough to go up to. You wouldn't just take it up as far as 6 because then you've got a line at the very top. So you would normally go 1 interval, whatever your top would be. And this makes sense. It goes up in, it actually goes up in 1s if you look, there's individual lines, but the labels on the y-axis go up in 2s, which is fairly clear to see. If this was a survey of 10,000 people, obviously we wouldn't go up in 2s because the chart would be massive. You might go up in hundreds or thousands or whatever it might be, whatever's most appropriate. But you start from 0 on your y-axis and go up to whatever's an appropriate level and have clear, and as it said, one thing is consistent intervals. So you couldn't go 2, 4, 6, 12, 24, 36 and just suddenly jump. You'll notice on this chart, and actually I've got this on all the charts, there's an overall title, even though it's spelled the American way, the favorite type of music, movie, and then there's axis titles. So this one says people. Ideally, I would have put something like here, like genre or type of movie or something, so an extra title, but it has got these and it's fairly clear what they are. But the more titles you can put, what you want to be able to do is people to see your chart and know exactly what they're talking about, which is why you would have a title and you'll have those things. So that's a bar chart or a column chart. And the next one that was mentioned was a line graph. Looks a bit something like this. So this is one that's showing the midday temperatures over a period of 1 week. And again, if we look at our x-axis going across the bottom, we've got the 7 days a week. They've started on Sunday and they go 7 days a week. And they've actually started, as you see, they've actually gone in a couple there. So they could have started Sunday here at the line. It makes it a bit harder to view. So I would personally recommend leaving a little gap there before you go in. And again, they're equal distances. So if you look, it's sort of 2 small squares in between every day. And then on the left-hand side, they've got the temperature. And if we go up here, it's not a very straight line, I'm afraid. We can see that Sunday must have been 25 degrees. Monday would have been 28 degrees, and so on and so on. so we can see what the temperatures are. Something you'll note here on the, if I get my pen back, there we go, on the x-axis, sorry, I did it again, on the y-axis is this sort of wiggly line. So ideally, what a chart should always do, should always start at 0, but clearly for this chart, there were no temperatures between 0 and 19. So basically, we don't need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 all the way up to 19 because there's nothing there. So we can draw this sort of squiggly line and then basically saying we'll miss a gap. In this case, that's quite good, especially if this wasn't temperature of food, it was temperature of an oven, and the lowest temperature was 160 degrees. We definitely wouldn't want to go up too much, and it just enables us to have a clearer graph. I'll come back to that when I mention the actual software that you use for creating a graph on the functional skills that we use, but just to bear that in mind. So although you are starting at 0, this has actually jumped up a little bit. And again, the intervals are every one, and they're clearly labelled. And again, we've got clear axis labels that tell us what we've got here. Tells us what we've got here, and we've got an overall temperature. The plots are the dots are plotted as we go, and you'll see what's happening is the lines joining successive points. So Sunday joins to Monday, joins to Tuesday, joins to Wednesday. So it isn't a smooth line, and you can get them drawn. If you use Excel and things, you can make them look a bit smoother than they are, but direct lines from one to the other will just show. And really, there's no need for any information. Right, pointer's gone. There's no information really here between Sunday and Monday. We can just see the progress between them. And again, the intervals are consistent. So that's a line graph. And that's showing, line graph shows progression because in this case, it goes over 7 days of the week. So they move on. Similar, but different, is a scatter graph. And the key difference with the scatter graph, if you look, it looks very similar. So in this case, we've got umbrella sales in relation to set rainfall in a given place. And so again, we've got our x-axis going up from 0, and it's going up in millimeters of rainfall this time, and we've got labels and everything as we need. And on the y-axis, we've got numbers of umbrellas sold. And actually, the lowest here was, it looks like maybe that's 1 or 2. So they've started on 0 and gone up in 5s, which makes sense. But the difference here, we've got data is spread in potentially a random pattern. So we've got the x's where they make, and actually the rainfall sold can do different numbers depending on different days. So they've actually looked at different days and got different marks. So they're not connected. We're not joining up the lines such as this because it's not about a period of time progressing. That what we're looking at is rainfall per millimeter. So we don't know what they're going to be from a day to day. So as well as all the normal things, what we do have on a scatter graph, all we can do is what's called a line of best fit. So at the moment, the plot points are completely random. They're completely scattered as they are. But what we want to try and do is see if there's any kind of relationship between them. Now, I'm just going to put a few more random X's on, and they are completely random. And it's quite hard to see any pattern there because there is no pattern. They're just completely random. So a line of best fit wouldn't be very useful there. I erase all my ink. And this time, again, go back to the line of best fit. What we can draw on here is a line that shows the general trend. So a line of best fit is sometimes known as a trend line. And if I drew one on here, it might be something like that. So the trend line or the line of best fit is a straight line that goes through as many of the points as possible and has an equal number of points on each side. So if you look at the line there, I've got it going through this one point here and almost through this one. Maybe it could have been a bit more accurate. And below the line, I've got 2 points here that are quite close. I've got 2 above the line, but they're both a little bit further away. So again, you could argue that line could come down a little bit. But what that line is showing me, if I get rid of all of those and just show the line, it's showing me the general trend that, as you expect, the higher the rainfall, generally, the more umbrellas are sold. So it's giving me a general trend. So I could say if the rainfall, if this had carried on, I could say the predicted outcome for 8 millimeters would be somewhere around here and would give me an idea. Now in maths, there is a mathematical way of working out the line of best fit exactly. You're not expected to do that at level 2 functional skills. I possibly could do it, but I definitely need to do some revision myself. So if you're asked to draw the line of best fit, it means exactly that, just showing the general trend of the line that goes up. So that's a very common thing you asked it in the test, is to either given a chart and draw a line of best fit, or you plot the points and then do it. And as I say, generally what we're talking about with line of best fit is showing, it's also known as a trend line, the general trend that people are going up. And the final one that I wanted to mention is a pie chart. You may have seen something like this. So this is a survey of number of passengers in a car. There's somebody on the side of the road looking at counting the number of cars over a period of time. And we've got the figures there of who's in each car. So there's 120 cars with one person, 40 cars with 2 people, and so on. And we've put them into a pie chart. So a pie chart is when data is in clear categories. In this case, the categories are the number of people in a car. Usually doesn't need to be necessarily coloured, but there would usually be coloured sections that show the spread of the information. And what you also need to do is your numbers, 100% your numbers, shared between the 360 degrees of a circle. So all the way around a circle is 360 degrees, which I'll come to in a moment. And as always, we've got a title up here, and we've got labels. We haven't got a key here. So instead of these labels pointing to it, we could have a chart that says red equals 1 person, blue equals 2 people, and so on. What you ideally need to do, and I'm not going to go through this because this is a separate topic, is to work out the percentage of these numbers. So for 120 people, out of 180 is 67%. And then for 2 people, 40 cars was 22%, and so on. So once you worked out percentage, you can also then work out what's called the angle. So as I say, a circle is 360 degrees all the way around. So what I've worked out there is 67% of 360 is actually 240 degrees. 7% of 360 is actually 25 degrees. So that's showing me the angle that my chart needs to be at. So again, if you can see, very good, because I'm red on red. But if I show here where this starts one and goes all the way around here, that would be approximately 240 degrees. I've actually rounded these up. And then 2 people, this is about 80 degrees. So if you were drawing one of these freehand, then you would use those figures, you would use your angles rather than your percentage, and you'll be able to draw them in using a protractor or something. Very unlikely, because the test you'll be doing is computer based, and unless you're doing one of these freehand for another reason, if you're doing it for work, you may use Excel or something like that. So probably don't necessarily need to work out those angles, but I have mentioned them because it is part of it and it's something you may need to know. So those are the 4 types of chart. And what I want to do for you just quickly, and to do this, I'll just need to stop sharing with you and share again. I'm going to show you the testing software that is used for the City and Guilds functional skills test. And as I say, for some of you who are further away from your test, this is something that will be done in the future. For those who are close to the test, you'll know it now. What I'm actually going on to is what's called a navigation test. So it shows you how the system works. So when you do get closer to the test, you can get one of these navigation tests so you can log in and see exactly how the system works, including having a play with the graph software. So I'm just going to give you a quick run through it now, because as I say, when you come closer to the test, if you're not already, you'll be able to have a go at this yourself anyway. And once I've logged in. So this is what the test system looks like a little bit. There are some changes sometimes, and this navigation system takes me to question number 8, is a bar chart. So in the real test, you would be asked to do a type of chart. It may say create a bar chart or a scatter chart, but it may not. You may need to choose which type of chart that you want. So if there's a bar chart, you click bar chart, and you'll see it's a preset chart for you there. And there's a couple of things that I want to point out to you. At the top here, one of the key things is edit axis, and it's actually editing the y-axis to the vertical axis on the left-hand side. And let's say the minimum value I mentioned for a bar chart should always be 0. And let's say we want our chart to go up to 100. Our highest figure is 93. So let's go up to 100. And what I want to do is do 10 divisions between there. And I'm going to click the key thing to click show numbers, and it will automatically put the numbers on the screen for me. So I'm going up in tens, up from 0 up to 100, and it's showing my numbers on there for me. So that's quite a key thing under edit axis. I then say number of bars. Let's say we're going to have 3 bars, and I can grab. So let's say this is a chart about people's favorite crisp flavor. So we asked how many people, and 75 people, which is about there, said ready salted. So I'm going to make that red because Walker's ready salted a red. Only 20% said cheese and onion because they're disgusting, and we won't have that discussion. So let's say that's in blue, and let's say salt and vinegar was 98%, so right up there, and we'll make that green. What I can also do now is I can add a key to my chart. So add a key, and the title would be bar chart showing whatever it might be, in this case people's favorite crisps, and I can add my key and edit it. I'm going through quite quickly this because you will get to have a play with it. So red is going to mean ready salted, and I'm going to add blue, which will mean cheese and onion, and so on. And you'll see my key appears on the right hand screen there. It is a limited software, so I can't actually move this chart around, so you'll have lost some of the information a little bit hidden green there, but you can see everything. But you can see I've got an overall title of a bar chart showing blah blah blah, and I've got my key there, and I've shown my 3 figures. If I wanted to, I can add some text. So let's add text here to say exactly what that figure is. 78 would be my figure for ready sorted. I could do that for each of them if I've got time. Not essential, because actually I've dragged that pretty much to 78, or pretty much close it is, but I can put that in as well. So a very quick short stop of that, I know that, but that's just to show you the kind of things you can do with the chart on the system. And again, you will have a play with that before you do the real test. Let me quickly jump on to some of the others. So this is, I'm just going to reset what I did before, a line graph. And once again, we can edit the axis. Let's show our numbers, and let's just do 5 divisions between 0 and 10. And one of the difficulties here is I can't plot anything on the bottom line, so I need to do text. So let's say this here would be Monday. I'm just going to resize this a little bit and move it to that line there. And we'll do another one here and write Tuesday. And let's say it's number of people that buy a certain newspaper. Maybe the number should be a little bit higher there, but let's put that in there. And then all I would do is I'd collect my points. And Monday is 4, so I click that there. Tuesday is 8, so I click that about there. And it automatically joins the lineup. Wednesday is 2, so it's there, and so on for each of the days. And it will draw my line and join my lineup for me as I go. And I can do things like I can remove points if I've made a mistake, and I can put another point in, and those kind of things as well. So we have a bit of a play, a little bit more fiddly with the line graph, but that's possible. If I jump to number 11 on here, it'll let me. It did earlier, so it should do. So the example on here is a scatter graph. So once again, if I create a scatter graph, I can use my edit axis to give my points again. Let's keep it the same as it was. I've actually done individual lines there. And a scatter graph, again, I would put my titles down at the bottom, and my scatter graph I would put, and my points might be a bit more random, and obviously I might have more of them. It's a bad example, this is really, isn't it? Let's put some more down here. There's a lot of points there. And let's remove some of these, because otherwise I haven't done a very good example. And now if I want to draw a line of best fit, all I do is click line of best fit, oops, and it'll drag me a line, and then I can reposition it. And again, if I remember, I said the trend line, ideally you want to go through the middle of the points basically and show a general trend, so that kind of thing would work. So again, I've done a very quick version of it there, but hopefully you can see that in operation. And finally, what I want to show you on here, that you can maybe ask to draw a pie chart, create a pie chart. And a pie chart, again, I can add a key, so I can put an overall title, pie chart showing whatever it might be. And one of the good thing here is I can have the number of segments. So the one I did before about cars had 5 different segments, and you'll see rather than doing angles, it actually gives me the percentage. So I can't remember what it quite was, but the percentage for this one might be 3.1. This percentage might be 10.3. Yeah, and all I'm doing is clicking and dragging those around. And again, I can color them in different colors. Oops, or not. And so on. And then if I go back to my key, I can add the item. And if I edit this one, I'm saying blue is 1 person in a car. And I can say, I can't remember my next one, but let's say it was yellow. What's 2 people? So the system does my key for me automatically. It's got my percentages in automatically. I can put some text if I wanted to write in here anything, but I don't need to work out the angles, which is what I was showing you before. I wanted to show you so that you knew how to do it, and that you may need to do it, but certainly if you're using this system, you don't need to, because it works on percentage. And as I say, you just click and that. So that's very quick. And I know it's not ideal you watching rather than having a play of your own, but obviously that isn't possible to do in the time that we've got here. So when you do come closer to your test, you will have a chance to have a practice with that system. And as I said, there's sort of 2 parts to this. One is understanding the graphs and the different things that I've mentioned here, but one is actually creating them as well on the system. So it is certainly worth having a bit of a play with that system. So what I wanted to go through in a very short session today was that you understood there were different types of charts. Hopefully now you know the key features of at least 4, the key 4 charts that you'll need for the syllabus, which is a line chart, scatter chart, bar chart, and a pie chart. And then you know how to create charts in the testing software. So if you want to have that play with that at any time, you can. I would recommend you don't need to do it until you're closest to the test, but actually if you've just started your functional skills and you're not planning to do your test for a few months, but you want to have a play with the system, we can book you that navigation test and get you all set up with that, with the software and everything, so you can do it anytime. So thanks very much for listening. A slightly longer session to go through both of those, but just before we finish, can you let me know in the chat box how confident you feel about using graphs or charts now? And it may have gone up, hopefully, but it may have come down because now you're thinking, well, there's a bit more to that and I need to play with the software, so that's fine as well. So please be as honest as you can with your scores. And if you feel there's a lot more learning you need to do, then please just ask. Again, go on Skills Forward or speak to your tutors. And there's a lot of information online. And as I said, you can have a play with that system if it's if you want to have a look at how the actual software works. Thanks very much for those scores. I will stay around if there's any questions that people have. And yeah, thanks again for your time today.